Welcome to Wisdom for the Present, where we take ancient truth and bring it into clear, modern understanding. This episode uses AI-generated narration based on human-researched and written material.
Glad to be here for this one because, well, we are getting into some truly profound stuff today.
Yeah, we really are. I want you to just imagine being the wealthiest man in the known world. You hold this unimaginable political power.
Right, you have everything.
Exactly, everything. But then you're writing a letter in the dead of night and you're confessing that you, just like the lowest servant scrubbing the floors of your massive estate, are completely and utterly enslaved.
It's a pretty massive paradox.
It's a huge paradox,
Right.
and that is the exact situation we are stepping into today. We're taking a deep dive into a collection of really intimate letters written by Seneca.
Right, the first century Roman statesman, philosopher, and, playwright.
Yeah, and he's writing these letters to his younger friend, Lucilius. And in them, he is basically trying to distill the absolute essence of what it means to be human.
He's tackling the big questions.
Right, like how do we live with actual purpose? How do we endure inevitable suffering? And ultimately, how do we look death in the eye without blinking?
Which is no small task. And to really grasp the gravity of what he's doing here, you have to mentally step into his reality for a second.
Set the scene for us. What was Rome like for him?
Well, Rome during this period is a world characterized by extreme, almost grotesque wealth for a very select few.
And it was built on a pretty dark foundation, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
It is built entirely on the brutal realities of institutionalized slavery. It's just woven into the fabric of everything.
Wow, yeah.
But it's also this environment of constant, terrifying political danger. Seneca is navigating the court of Nero.
Right, Nero. Not exactly known for his stable temper.
Exactly. One wrong whisper, one misinterpreted glance at a dinner party, and it could literally cost you your head.
That is incredibly stressful.
It is. It's a society just drowning in distraction, luxury, and deep paranoia. Yet, against that extreme backdrop, the problems he's addressing to his friend are fundamentally universal.
Like things we still deal with today.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He is diagnosing human anxiety, the terrifying speed of time, and the desperate, often self-destructive ways we search for inner peace.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if you are listening to this on your commute right now, or maybe taking a walk to clear your head from a really stressful week at work, you are in the exact headspace these letters were meant to target.
You're the target audience, really.
We're on a mission of extraction here. We want to pull the psychological and moral insights out of these ancient pages, specifically letters 44 through 65, and see how they hold up to the pressures of the 21st century.
And they hold up surprisingly well, I think you'll find.
So let's begin with a pressure point that I think everyone listening will instantly recognize, and that is the exhausting game of social status.
Oh yeah, a timeless classic.
We live in a world that is just obsessed with hierarchy. We curate our LinkedIn titles. We obsess over where someone went to school.
What car they drive, what zip code they live in, yeah.
Exactly. It is this massive churning engine of modern anxiety.
It really is. It's arguably the defining neurosis of our age. And Seneca tackles it by basically dismantling the very foundation of how we measure human worth.
So how does he do that with his friend?
Well, he writes to Lucilius, who is apparently feeling a bit insecure about his lack of aristocratic pedigree. And Seneca reminds him that philosophy doesn't look at pedigrees.
Right, it doesn't care about your resume.
Exactly. He says if you trace any person back to their original source, we all spring from the exact same origins. We all have the same number of forefathers.
He actually pulls out this incredible quote from Plato to drive that home. He says, "Every king springs from a race of slaves, and every slave has had kings among his ancestors."
Which is just a brilliant way to frame it. Think about the psychological impact of reading that in a highly stratified society like Rome.
It must have been jarring.
Totally jarring. He's arguing that the flight of time and the chaotic turning of fortune's wheel have jumbled all of human history together.
So we're all just a mix of everything.
Right. If you go back far enough, every single family tree is an indistinguishable mix of the illustrious and the ignoble.
So having a bunch of statues of your ancestors in your hallway doesn't actually mean anything.
No, having a hallway full of fancy, smoke-begrimed busts of your ancestors doesn't make you a noble person. Only your character can do that.
That makes sense.
He argues that the only true measure of being well-born is being naturally fitted for virtue.
That sounds like a really nice poetic sentiment, but to understand how dangerous and honestly radical that idea was back then,
Yeah.
we have to look at the physical reality of Roman slavery.
Yeah, it was not pretty.
Not at all. Seneca describes the treatment of slaves in this vivid, terrifying detail. He talks about a master sitting at a banquet, gorging himself on luxury foods until he is physically sick.
Right, the excess is just insane.
And while he's doing this, his slaves are forced to stand around the perimeter of the room, totally starving and completely mute, like they are not even allowed to move their lips.
It's an absolute gag rule.
Yes. And if a slave makes a chance sound, like a cough, a sneeze, or a hiccup, they are brutally beaten with a lash.
It is the ultimate expression of control through dehumanization. And Seneca points out the utter absurdity of it.
He gives some wild examples, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah. He mentions a slave whose entire existence, his only recognized purpose on earth, is to carve fat capons perfectly.
Just carving a bird, that's his whole life.
That's it. Or the wine server who was forced to dress in women's clothing, having all his body hair plucked out and kept beardless so he permanently resembles a young boy.
That is so messed up.
It's completely degrading. He is completely at the mercy of his master's drunkenness and lust. It is a system specifically designed to strip away every single ounce of human dignity.
And then, after describing all this horror, Seneca highlights the incredible irony of the system by telling the story of a man named Callistus.
Oh, this is a great story.
So Callistus was a slave, and his master decided he was useless, literally put a for sale sign around his neck and tossed him into the market with the reject slaves.
Just threw him away like garbage.
Exactly. But fortune flips the script on this guy. Callistus somehow gains his freedom and eventually secures immense political power in the imperial court.
He becomes a major player.
A huge player. So sometime later, that former master needs a favor. He is standing in line waiting to see Callistus.
The irony is so thick.
Right. And Callistus rejects him. He outright refuses him entry to his house. The master who casually threw him into the market is now entirely, helplessly at his mercy.
It's a perfect reversal of fortune.
It is, but I have to push back here for a second, because it is very easy for Seneca, a vastly wealthy, incredibly powerful Roman statesman who owned huge estates and slaves himself, to sit back and say, hey, status doesn't matter. We're all equal in the eyes of philosophy.
I get what you're saying.
Right. It feels exactly like a modern tech billionaire getting on a microphone at a conference and telling the working class that money doesn't buy happiness. It's a very easy philosophical pill to swallow when you already hold all the cards.
Your skepticism is completely justified, and it's the exact same resistance modern readers often have when they first encounter Stoicism.
It just feels a bit hypocritical.
What's fascinating here is what Seneca is actually doing with his language. He isn't just offering a patronizing pat on the back. He makes a claim that would have deeply offended his peers.
How so?
Well, when Roman society says they are slaves, Seneca responds, no, they are men. Then he escalates it. He says, no comrades, no unpretentious friends.
Wow, okay.
And then he delivers the final blow. He says, no, fellow slaves.
Fellow slaves, okay, that is a massive shift in language.
It redefines the entire concept of servitude. Seneca is arguing that external physical slavery, being owned by another person, is merely a matter of fortune.
It's just bad luck.
It's terrible, obviously, but it's an external condition. The real slavery, the most disgraceful and absolute servitude, is internal and self-imposed.
So he's turning the mirror back on the wealthy guys.
Exactly. He throws a challenge to his wealthy aristocratic friends. Show me a man who isn't a slave. He points out the politician who is a slave to his ambition.
Or the merchant who is a slave to greed.
Right. Or the aristocrat who is a slave to his lust. He even points out that a millionaire can be a slave to a serving maid if his entire emotional state depends on her affection.
So everyone is basically a slave to fear or desire.
Yes. Everyone is chained to something internally.
If you take that lens and overlay it on our modern corporate life, it completely upends the traditional org chart.
Oh, completely.
Think about how we size people up at a networking event. We glance at their name tag, we register their title, and we instantly calculate their worth based on what they can do for us.
We do it all the time without even thinking.
We treat the intern like they are totally invisible, and we hang on every single word the CEO says, even if that CEO is miserable, highly anxious, and deeply corrupt.
Because we value people by their packaging. Seneca calls this out directly. He says, if you value a person by their clothes, their rank, or their title, you are like a fool who buys a horse by only looking at the saddle and the bridle.
That's a great analogy.
The core takeaway he offers is almost deceptively simple. Treat your inferiors as you would be treated by your betters.
Because things can change in an instant.
Exactly. Remember that fortune has equal rights over the CEO and the intern alike. The person you completely dismissed today might be the Callistus you desperately need a favor from tomorrow.
Okay, but let's say you get this. You realize the social hierarchy is a rigged game and you actually stop caring about your status.
Okay, sure.
The immediate next impulse most of us have is a desire to just escape the whole system. If the social environment is toxic, we assume we need to change our physical
I
environment.
want to run away.
Right. We want to pack our bags, leave the city, and go sit on a beach somewhere to finally find some peace.
We assume the anxiety is geographically located, like it's tied to our zip code.
Exactly. But Seneca tests this theory, right?
He does, by looking at two dramatically different physical environments.
Yeah.
First, he visits Baiae, which was the ultimate luxury resort town of the ancient Roman world.
I've heard of this place.
Yeah, it was located on the Bay of Naples, known for its hot springs and just absolute unbridled decadence.
Based on his descriptions, it honestly sounds like spring break in Miami crossed with a billionaire's yacht party.
That is a very accurate description.
He describes people wandering the beaches, completely intoxicated, endless sailing parties, and these nocturnal brawls of serenaders just keeping everyone awake all night.
Sounds exhausting.
And Seneca visits this place, looks around at all the chaos, and literally leaves the very next day.
He flees because he recognizes that luxury doesn't actually relax the soul. It actively weakens it.
It makes you soft.
Exactly. And to prove this, he contrasts Baiae with Liternum, the rugged, austere home where the great general Scipio Africanus lived in exile.
Oh, interesting contrast.
Seneca visits Scipio's estate and just marvels at its simplicity. He points out that Scipio didn't need hot baths and perfectly manicured gardens to be great.
He just needed discipline.
Right. And then he brings up Hannibal, the legendary Carthaginian general, to drive the point home. Hannibal crossed the Alps, surviving the most brutal, freezing, unforgiving conditions imaginable.
A truly legendary military feat.
But when Hannibal decided to winter his troops in the luxurious, soft region of Campania, his army lost its edge. They got lazy.
Wow.
As Seneca puts it, Hannibal conquered with his weapons, but was conquered by his vices.
That is such a powerful phrase. And he also uses the story of a Roman named Vatia to explore the psychology of isolation, doesn't he?
Yes, Vatia is a fascinating case study in these letters.
Vatia was famously wealthy, and whenever the political climate in Rome got a bit tense or dangerous, Vatia would retreat to his massive, luxurious seaside villa.
You just vanish.
Right. And people would walk by his estate and sigh, saying, "Oh, Vatia, you alone know how to live." But Seneca drives past and says to himself, "Here lies Vatia."
He uses the language of a tombstone.
Exactly. Because Vatia didn't know how to live. He only knew how to hide. His leisure wasn't about cultivating wisdom. It was just idleness born out of paranoia and self-preservation.
Hiding from the world to protect your wealth isn't peace, It's just a highly comfortable form of imprisonment.
It's a golden cage.
But I think the absolute best example Seneca gives regarding environment is his own living situation at one point.
Oh, this is my favorite part of the letters.
He writes one of these philosophical letters while renting a room directly above a public Roman bathhouse.
The sensory details in this letter are phenomenal. I mean, you can practically smell the sweat and hear the echoing tile in the background.
It's so visceral.
He describes sitting at his desk, trying to do deep philosophical study, surrounded by absolute deafening bedlam.
The chaos.
He hears the grunting of the weightlifters downstairs, the wheezing as they release their breath. He hears the slapping sound of the cheap rub-downs, just the smacking of hands on bare shoulders.
And the game's going on outside.
Right. There's a professional scorekeeper shouting out the score of a ball game taking place in the courtyard.
Add in the splashing of enthusiastic swimmers, the sudden commotion of a random pickpocket being arrested out of nowhere.
Oh, and don't forget the guy who just loves the sound of his own voice echoing in the vaulted bathroom.
Naturally, there's always one of those.
And the hair plucker. He specifically singles out the hair plucker, who has this shrill, penetrating voice, constantly yelling to advertise his services.
It's like a bizarre commercial playing on a loop.
And he only ever stops yelling when he's actively plucking someone's armpits, at which point he forces his victim to yell instead.
It's just nonstop noise.
And layered over all of this are the cake sellers, the sausage men, the confectioners, all hawking their food with their own specific, annoying, repetitive intonations.
It sounds like an absolute nightmare for trying to concentrate.
It really does. Now, reading this today, it hits incredibly close to home. Think about the lengths we go to for silence in our modern lives.
We spend so much money on it.
We do. People pay thousands of dollars for silent wellness retreats. We buy expensive noise-canceling headphones.
Guilty as charged.
Right. We assume that if we just delete our social media apps and move to a quiet cabin in the woods, all our anxiety will magically vanish. We are convinced the problem is the noise outside of us.
And Seneca dismantles that illusion completely. He tells Lucilius that a quiet neighborhood is entirely useless if your emotions are in an uproar.
Because you take your mind with you.
Exactly. He writes, sometimes quiet means disquiet. You can sit in the most remote, luxurious, silent villa in the world, but if your mind is infected with fear, greed, or ambition, you will be miserable.
The silence will actually make it worse.
Right, because you have nothing to distract you from your own thoughts. He describes a wealthy man who demands absolute silence in his mansion. His slaves have to tiptoe. No one is allowed to speak above a whisper.
Sounds intense.
Yet, this man tosses and turns all night, complaining that he hears noises when there is absolute silence around him. The noise isn't in the house. The noise is in his own soul.
So, if your mind starts at every single noise, if you are easily distracted by a passing carriage or a shouting vendor, your mind is unstable. You haven't built an internal fortress.
That's the crux of it. Though, it's important to note that Seneca isn't a masochist.
He's not just torturing himself for fun.
Right. He eventually admits at the end of the letter that he's going to move out of the bathhouse apartment because the constant shouting is literally going to ruin his hearing.
He's like, okay, I've proven my point, I'm out.
Exactly. The goal isn't to perfectly control your environment, nor is it to needlessly torture yourself. The goal is to train yourself so that the external noise doesn't penetrate the soul.
That makes a lot of sense.
Let the outside world be a bedlam, provided there's no disturbance within.
Think about how you can use that today. The next time you are stuck at a gate during a delayed flight, or you're trying to work in a noisy, open-plan office, or your house is just chaotic with kids, don't immediately reach for the headphones or try to escape.
Use it as a gym for your mind.
Exactly. Use it as a stoic training ground. Force your mind to concentrate on a single thought. Practice letting the outside world be a mess while maintaining absolute stillness inside.
It's hard, but it's great practice.
But why is that stillness so difficult to achieve in the first place? Why do we constantly blame the noisy bathhouse instead of looking inward?
Well, according to Seneca, it's because we are fundamentally blind to our own inner chaos. We simply don't realize our souls are diseased.
He illustrates this with one of the strangest, honestly most tragic stories in the whole collection.
The story of her past.
Yeah. He tells Lucilius about his wife's female clown, a woman named Harpast. According to Seneca, Harpast suddenly lost her vision and went completely blind.
Just out of nowhere.
But instead of acknowledging her blindness, her mind created this delusion. She didn't realize she was blind. Instead, she constantly demanded that her attendant change her quarters, complaining over and over again, the room is too dark.
It is a devastating metaphor.
It really is.
It perfectly captures human psychology. We might smile at Harpast's delusion, but Seneca points out that we are all doing the exact same thing every single day.
How so?
Nobody admits that they are greedy. Nobody admits they're covetous. A blind person at least asks for a guide, but we wander around without one, making endless excuses.
Oh, I see.
We say, I'm not overly ambitious, but you can't survive in this industry any other way. Or, I'm not materialistic, the cost of living is just high.
We rationalize everything.
We blame the environment. We insist the room is too dark, rather than admitting our internal vision is compromised.
He pairs this psychological insight with a really funny physical story about himself, actually. He is taking a boat trip from Puteoli to Naples.
Oh, the seasickness story.
Yeah. The weather turns, the sea gets rough, and he gets violently, helplessly seasick. He describes forcing the pilot to put him ashore, practically crawling over the jagged rocks in his heavy cloak just to get off the boat.
Just pure misery.
And as his stomach is settling on dry land, he starts thinking about the myth of Ulysses. Ulysses was famous for constantly being shipwrecked and blown off course by angry gods.
Right, the epic journey.
Seneca realizes maybe Ulysses wasn't cursed by the sea god at all. Maybe he just suffered from severe seasickness and kept demanding to be put ashore.
It's a hilarious reinterpretation of the myth, but the connection he makes here is brilliant.
Which is what?
When we suffer a physical illness, like a fever, gout, a broken arm, or seasickness, we notice it immediately. The pain is undeniable.
You can't ignore a broken arm.
Right. We claim it, we rest, we seek a doctor. But diseases of the soul operate in reverse. The worse a soul is diseased, the less it perceives its own sickness.
Oh, wow. That's deep.
He compares it to sleep. A man taking a light nap might realize he's dreaming, but a man in a deep, heavy, exhausted slumber is completely unconscious of himself.
So you need something to wake you up.
Exactly. And he uses Alexander the Great to show what it takes to pierce that delusion.
Alexander the Great. Okay.
Alexander is out conquering the known world, surrounded by sycophants, being treated by his men as a literal immortal god.
Basically drinking his own Kool-Aid.
Totally. But during a siege, he is struck by an arrow. As he sits on his horse, his leg going numb, watching his own blood flow, the physical reality shatters the ego's delusion.
The pain wakes him up.
Yes. He looks at the wound and says, "All men swear that I am the son of Jupiter, but this wound cries out that I am mortal."
That is an incredible realization.
It requires a wound to wake us up. We need reality to pierce the flattery we constantly feed ourselves.
So what does this all mean? If we are walking around like Harpast, completely blind to our own faults, convinced the room is just dark, how do we cure a disease we can't even perceive?
It's the ultimate paradox of self-improvement.
It's like a sophisticated computer virus whose very first objective, the moment it breaches your system, is to disable your antivirus software and send a message to the operating system saying, everything is running perfectly.
That is a perfect modern analogy. The virus hides itself first, and the first step to overcoming the virus is accepting that you are infected.
You have to admit you have a problem.
Seneca tells Lucilius that learning virtue is actually a process of unlearning vice. The mind isn't hardened stone, it is pliable. He says it is more adaptable than air.
So change is always possible.
We can be reshaped, but the primary obstacle is our addiction to flattery. We love to rebrand our flaws.
Give me an example of rebranding a flaw.
Well, we accept praise for being gentle when we are actually just avoiding necessary conflict. Or we think we were being generous when we were actually just trying to buy affection from someone.
Oh, yeah, that stings a bit.
To begin the unlearning process, Seneca says we have to be ruthlessly selective about who we allow to teach us.
Who we let into our minds.
Right. He warns against philosophers, speakers, or, in our modern context, influencers, who speak solely to get cheap applause from a crowd.
The ones just farming for engagement.
Exactly. If someone is just trying to make you feel comfortable, to entertain you, to tell you what you want to hear, they are not a physician. They are an entertainer.
You don't want an entertainer doing surgery on you.
He asks, does the sick man applaud the surgeon while he is actively slicing open his flesh? No. You submit to the cure in silence and with reverent awe.
It's supposed to hurt a little.
Real wisdom isn't a TED Talk designed to make you smile. It is a surgical operation on your soul.
So a practical way to apply this is to actively seek out your own Alexander's arrow moments.
Look for the things that ground you.
When someone flatters you, or when you find yourself blaming your circumstances for your bad behavior, intentionally remind yourself of your own mortal flaws. Say to yourself, you call me a sensible person, but I can't even control my temper in traffic.
Right. Puncture the ego.
Use your vulnerabilities to stay grounded and pierce the delusion of your own ego.
But as you start looking for that surgeon, as you turn to philosophy or self-improvement for a cure, Seneca issues a massive warning.
What's the warning?
You have to be incredibly careful not to mistake academic word games for actual medicine, because while you are playing games, time is running out.
And Seneca reserves a special kind of venom for the intellectual trends of his day, right?
He despises them. He looks at the logicians and dialecticians, the elite scholars who spend all their time constructing complex syllogisms and linguistic puzzles, and he mocks them relentlessly.
The examples he gives are actually hilarious, but they really show how absurd the academic world had become.
Tell them the mouse one.
Okay, so he writes about how these scholars would set logical traps for each other. One of them goes, mouse is a syllable. A mouse eats cheese, therefore a syllable eats cheese.
Just absolute nonsense.
Or they would spend endless hours debating the liar fallacy, where a person says, I am lying, and you have to logically deduce if the statement is true or false.
Mind-bending, but ultimately useless.
Seneca is looking at grown men, supposedly the wisest minds in Rome, throwing his hands up and saying, are we knitting our brows over this childish nonsense? Are we letting our beards grow long to look wise while we argue about syllables eating cheese?
His frustration stems from a fundamental belief about the purpose of knowledge. He is demanding to know why we are wasting our precious, limited time on trivialities.
Because there are real problems out there.
Look at the world around you, he says. Men are dying. People are living in crushing poverty. They are sick. They are terrified of what tomorrow might bring.
Humanity is struggling.
Humanity is stretching out, imploring hands for help, looking for a way to endure suffering. Philosophy is supposed to be the life raft. It is supposed to offer counsel and a path to peace, not trick questions and parlor games.
He connects this directly to the terrifying speed of time. When we are caught up in the present moment, we don't notice it passing. But when you stop and look back, memory makes the past seem like it was just a moment ago.
It just vanishes.
We spend so much of our brief existence lingering, distracted by nonsense, and life simply passes us by.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because this translates so perfectly to our modern digital lives.
Well, it really does. Think about the pedantic debates on social media. We will spend hours in a comment section arguing about the exact definition of a word, or tearing apart someone's logic on a topic that has zero actual bearing on how we live our lives.
Just trying to win imaginary points.
It feels like standing in the hallway of a burning building. The alarms are blaring, the smoke is rising, and you are stopping to argue with your coworker about a typo in the evacuation manual.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's a profound psychological trap. We engage in these trivial debates, we obsess over the superfluous because we harbor a subconscious illusion that we have infinite time.
We think we have forever to figure it out.
If we focus on the mouse eating cheese, we don't have to focus on the fact that we are going to die. Seneca puts it beautifully. Such persons do not live, but are preparing to live.
Preparing to live.
Wow. We postpone the actual grueling work of living virtuously. We tell ourselves we just need to read one more book, win one more argument online, master one more piece of trivia, and then we will start living well.
And it's so seductive because intellectual distraction feels like actual work.
It tricks the brain.
It feels productive to win a debate. It gives you a hit of dopamine, but it doesn't require you to change your behavior.
Exactly.
It doesn't require you to face your fears or mend your broken relationships. You are catching syllables in a mousetrap while your actual life slips through your fingers.
To combat this, you need a ruthless filter for your attention. Before you engage in a debate, before you dive down a 3-hour internet rabbit hole, stop and ask yourself, does mastering this information do me any good? Does being ignorant of it do me any harm?
Does this actually matter?
Does this knowledge banish lust? Does it help me control my fear? If the answer is no, drop it immediately. You simply do not have the time. The enemy is closing in on the rear.
And the ultimate enemy, the reality we are trying so desperately to ignore with our trivialities, is loss. The loss of our loved ones and eventually the loss of our own lives.
Heaviest topics of all.
Which brings us to the most poignant section of these letters. How to navigate grief, fear, and mortality.
Seneca writes to Lucilius, who is actively grieving the death of a close friend named Flaccus. And what makes this section so powerful is that Seneca doesn't just hand down stoic platitudes from on high. He confesses his own past failures with grief.
He's vulnerable here.
He tells Lucilius about how excessively he wept when he lost his own dear friend, Annaeus Serenus. He admits he was totally unprepared for the death, primarily because Serenus was younger than him.
He thought he'd outlive him.
Seneca says he foolishly assumed that the fates kept to the chronological order of our ages.
Which is such a profoundly human assumption. We think there is an orderly line for death, like taking a number at a deli.
Right, but there isn't.
But Seneca doesn't tell his friend to just suppress his emotions or act like a robot, which is what people often think Stoics do.
Not at all. He makes a crucial distinction. He says, "Let not the eyes be dry, nor let them overflow. We may weep, but we must not wail."
Feel it, but don't lose yourself in it.
He points to the Greek myth of Niobe, a woman who lost all her children in a terrible tragedy, yet despite her overwhelming grief, still eventually took thought of food. Life demands that we continue.
He suggests a shift in how we process the memory of the dead, too. He quotes a philosopher friend, Attalus, who compared remembering lost friends to eating a fruit with an agreeably acid taste, or drinking an extremely old wine where the slight bitterness is actually what makes it complex and pleasing.
The sweet and sour memory.
And the memory is sweet and sour. Over time, the sharp, agonizing pain is quenched, and a pure, unalloyed pleasure in their memory remains.
It's a beautiful way to look at it. And he applies the same nuanced understanding of human nature to our physical fears as well.
Like the Naples Tunnel story.
Yes, he tells this vivid story about traveling through the Naples Tunnel. This was a notoriously long, dark, narrow, intensely dusty tunnel carved right through a mountain.
Sounds incredibly claustrophobic.
It was. And Seneca admits that as he entered the pitch black, he felt a real mental thrill of fear, a shuddering in the dark.
Even the great Stoic gets scared of the dark.
But he explains that these natural physiological reactions, shuddering at a precipice, feeling your stomach drop on a turbulent flight, fainting at the sight of blood, are not a lack of moral courage.
They're just biology.
Exactly. They are just biology. Your body reacting to danger isn't a failure of your philosophy.
Courage isn't the absence of a physical startle response. Courage is what your reason decides to do after that initial shudder.
And Seneca knows this intimately because he suffers from severe, debilitating asthma attacks.
Yeah, he writes about this pretty movingly.
He refers to his illness as a shortness of breath, that doctors literally call practicing how to die, because every single attack feels like a prolonged last gasp. He is constantly suffocating.
Yet he uses those terrifying asthma attacks to reason his way out of the fear of death itself.
He uses his own suffering as a tool.
He lies there, struggling to breathe, and asks himself, why am I afraid? Death is just non-existence. It is the exact same state as before we were born.
Lamp analogy, right?
Right. He asks, is a lamp worse off before it is lit than after it is extinguished? We are lit for a brief moment, we burn, and then we are extinguished. The time before we were born and the time after we die are the same deep, undisturbed peace.
It's a very comforting thought in a stark kind of way.
Now I need to stop here and push back hard on something Seneca says in this section about grief, because to modern ears it sounds incredibly harsh.
Okay, let's hear it.
When he is advising Lucilius on how to handle the loss of Flaccus, he says, you have buried one whom you loved. Look about for someone to love. It is better to replace your friend than to weep for him.
Ah, yes. The replace your friend line.
Wait, replace your friend. A friend isn't a broken wagon wheel. A friend is a unique human soul. That feels incredibly callous, as if people are just interchangeable cogs to a Stoic.
I completely understand why that line jars modern sensibilities. It sounds terrible at first glance. But you have to look at the underlying mechanics of Stoic philosophy regarding human connection.
So what is he actually trying to say?
He isn't commodifying humans, and he certainly isn't saying that Flaccus as an individual is interchangeable. He is talking about the enduring capacity of the human heart.
Okay, go on.
His point is that if you truly love humanity, if you are fundamentally a good friend, you shouldn't let grief shut down your capacity to love the living.
Don't close yourself off.
Right. He uses an analogy. If you lose your only tunic in the freezing winter cold, do you just sit in the snow and weep about the lost tunic, or do you immediately look about for another covering to survive?
But a tunic is an object that still feels like it's minimizing the unique value of the person we lost.
Consider what the alternative is, though. If you refuse to love again, if you decide that because you lost Flaccus, you will never open your heart to another friend, you are letting death defeat the virtue of love.
Oh, I see.
Seneca is arguing for the expansion of the heart, not the replacement of the individual. This raises an important question, one he challenges us to ask ourselves when we're grieving.
What's the question?
Are we genuinely mourning for the person who is gone, or are we parading our grief for ourselves? Are we seeking proofs of our bereavement to show the world how much we care?
That is a tough pill to swallow.
There is a subtle selfishness in performative, unending sorrow. He says the ultimate test of the Stoic mindset, the true mark of freedom, is to do nothing unwillingly.
Embrace what happens.
If you must die, or if you must face a devastating loss, desire what circumstances demand. The person who takes his orders gladly escapes the bitterest part of slavery, which is doing what you desperately don't want to do.
This leads to a mental practice that can fundamentally change how you view your day. Seneca advises that when you put your head on the pillow at night, you should say to yourself, you may not wake again.
Memento mori.
And when you wake up in the morning, say, you may not go to sleep again. This isn't meant to make you morbid or depressed. It is meant to strip away that illusion of infinite time we talked about earlier.
It gives life urgency.
It forces you to live every single day as a complete life, leaving nothing essential unsaid or undone.
It is a profound shift.
Yeah.
But how do we actually sustain that level of bravery? How do you look at death, loss, and the chaotic unpredictability of fortune and not get crushed by the weight of it?
That's the million-dollar question.
According to the final section of our text, we do it by zooming way, way out, To achieve true freedom of the mind, we have to recognize that our physical bodies, our titles, and our circumstances are just a tiny fraction of existence. We are moving into the grand design of the cosmos.
So we're getting into the metaphysics now.
Here, Seneca shifts gears into some heavy, abstract metaphysics. He starts by complaining about how poor the Latin language is compared to Greek when it comes to expressing vast philosophical concepts.
A little ancient language rivalry.
Exactly. He is trying to translate the Greek word ousia into Latin. The best he can come up with is essentia, the essence or pure being of things.
Why does that matter, though? Why is he complaining about vocabulary right after talking about life and death?
Because language dictates the limits of our thought. If Latin lacks a robust vocabulary to describe pure immaterial being separate from physical objects, it means Roman culture is inherently biased toward the material world.
That's fascinating.
Seneca is trying to free Lucilius from his attachment to his physical body and his material wealth. If he can't even express the concept of an immaterial soul or a universal design, his friend will remain trapped in the physical world, terrified of losing it.
That makes total sense. To break him out of that material trap, Seneca dives into a comparative look at how different philosophical schools view the causes of the universe.
The how do we get here question.
Right. How did all of this, the stars, the earth, our bodies get here? He explains that his own school, the Stoics, believe there are two foundational causes. Matter, which is sluggish, inert, and ready for use, and cause, which is reason or God, the divine molder that sets the matter in motion.
But he doesn't stop there. He brings in Aristotle's view, which argues that there are four causes. And Seneca uses the creation of a bronze statue to explain it, which makes the concept brilliantly accessible.
Let's break that down for everyone. So the first cause is the material, the bronze itself. Without the bronze, you obviously have no statue.
Right, you need the stuff.
The second cause is the workman, the sculptor who possesses the actual skill to shape the bronze.
The agent of change.
The third cause is the form, the specific shape stamped upon the bronze, making it a statue of a lance-bearer rather than just a shiny, shapeless lump of metal.
It gives it identity.
And the fourth cause is the purpose. Why did the sculptor make it in the first place? Was it for money, for fame, as a religious offering to a temple?
Then Seneca adds Plato's fifth cause to the mix, the pattern, or the idea.
The blueprint.
Yes, this is the eternal, perfect model that the artist is gazing upon in his mind's eye while he works. The physical statue is just an imitation of that perfect idea.
Because the physical statue can never be as perfect as the idea in the head.
Exactly. Plato believed that God contains these perfect eternal patterns of all things, men, trees, animals, the universe itself, within his own divine mind.
And what was God's purpose, that fourth Aristotelian cause for creating the universe? Seneca, leaning on Plato, says that God is inherently good, and a good being doesn't grudge anything good.
Therefore, his purpose was goodness itself.
He made the best possible world out of the material available.
Seneca contrasts this eternal, purposeful divine creation with our own fleeting physical reality. He quotes the philosopher Heraclitus, who famously said, "We go down twice into the same river and yet into a different river."
Meaning the water is always moving.
Right. The name of the river stays the same, but the water you touch is constantly flowing past, replaced by new water every second.
And he applies this to human life.
He applies it directly to us. Our bodies, our wealth, our status, they are hurried along like flowing waters. Every single instant means the death of our previous condition.
Okay, stop. I have to call a foul here.
Uh-oh. What is it?
We just spent section 4 violently mocking logicians for debating syllables eating cheese. We said that humanity is dying, the building is burning, and we shouldn't waste time on pedantic philosophical puzzles.
I see where you're going.
And now suddenly, Seneca is lecturing us about Plato's forms, Aristotle's four causes, and the metaphysics of river water. What is the difference? Why is this acceptable, but the liar fallacy is a total waste of time?
It is a totally fair question, but it is the difference between looking at a puzzle box and looking through a telescope.
Okay, explain that.
The wordplay in section 4 was a trap. It was pedantic. It kept the mind focused on trivialities, on winning petty arguments that had absolutely no bearing on the health of the soul.
It kept you looking at your own feet.
Yes. But the contemplation of the universe, the origins of existence, and the nature of God does the exact opposite. It frees the mind from the prison of the body.
It elevates your perspective.
Precisely. Seneca argues that our physical body is a heavy penance, a weight upon the soul. When we are trapped in physical pain from asthma or political danger from a tyrant like Nero, or the grief of losing a friend, our vision becomes incredibly narrow.
We think our immediate suffering is the entire universe.
We do. By contemplating the cosmos, the vastness of time, and the eternal nature of the divine mind, the soul achieves its liberty. It escapes its custody.
It's like stepping outside.
Seneca compares it to a craftsman who has been straining his eyes for hours in a dark, gloomy room, doing delicate, frustrating work, who finally steps outside, stands up straight, and delights his eyes in the generous light of day.
And there is a highly practical, life-saving result to this abstract knowledge. If we truly internalize the idea that everything physical, the river water, our bodies, our bank accounts, our social status, is in a constant state of flux and is destined to flow away, while only the mind and the cosmic order endure, the fear begins to evaporate.
You stop holding on so tightly.
Why are we clinging so desperately to our bodies if they are just temporary material? Why are we terrified of death if it is just a return to the eternal pattern?
The macro perspective fundamentally diminishes the micro-anxiety. When you are feeling trapped by a physical illness, or crushed by mundane stress, or paralyzed by the fear of loss, intentionally shift your focus to the macro.
Look through the telescope.
Think about the scale of the cosmos. Offer your body as a buffer to fortune, knowing that the bronze can be bruised, broken, or melted down, but keep your soul free, roaming in the light of day.
It's an incredibly powerful shift in perspective. It makes me realize that in a profound way, we are all walking around as both the bronze and the sculptor of our own lives.
I like that.
The material might just be handed to us by fortune. Maybe it's flawed, maybe it's brilliant. Maybe we are born in a palace, maybe we are born as a slave, or maybe we are just trying to study in a tiny room above a deafeningly noisy bathhouse.
We don't control the raw material.
We don't, but the form we take, the pattern we follow, and the ultimate purpose of our lives, that is entirely up to us. We hold the chisel.
We decide what the statue looks like in the end.
So the ultimate question Seneca leaves us with is this. Will you let the noise of the bathhouse, the demands of the crowd, and the paralyzing fear of death shape you? Or will you be shaped by the quiet, enduring strength of your own mind?
That's the heart of this section. This is Wisdom for the Present, where understanding leads to clarity, and clarity shapes how we see and live. See you in the next episode.